The K&N Blackhawk intake here will be a great choice for the 2018 and newer Mustang GT owners out there who are looking for a no-tune required intake that will deliver a very stealthy all-black appearance and want to go with one of the most trusted names in the industry like K&N. Now the Blackhawk will come with everything needed for the installation, including the dry synthetic filter along with the heat shield, all for right around that mid $300 price point. Since the installation will not require any cutting, drilling, permanent modification, nothing crazy, we're going to call it a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter here, in about an hour or so to complete from start to finish, but if you hang till the end of the video, we'll show you how it's done. So K&N is one of those household names in the automotive aftermarket and one that has been around doing their thing for a very long time. And the Blackhawk here has been a popular intake choice for different generations in the past, and now is available for the Gen 3 Coyote, again found in the 2018 and newer Mustang GT. Now, as the name implies, the Blackhawk is all about murdering out or blacking out 99% of the intake, including your synthetic dry filter and even smaller things like the included clamps. The only exception here with this intake is this little plaque on the actual mandrel bent aluminum tube, which has been milled and the K&N logo is shining bright, but everything else is done up in all black. But breaking things down even further, you're going to find the Blackhawk, like K&N's other intake offerings currently for the new GT, will feature that open element design, which is going to have its pros along with some cons. Now the pros here will no doubt be the dramatic increase in noise coming from under the hood, under hard acceleration, along with a much cooler look compared to a more traditional sealed enclosure. Now, the one big drawback with something like this is that you're not fully isolating the filter from any hot possible engine bay air from entering the intake itself, and that's where a sealed enclosure or airbox will get the nod. But what does it all mean when it comes time to talk about power? Well, K&N claims 9 horsepower, 23 pound-feet of torque with the Blackhawk installed, and that is without the use of a tune. And if I were to guess, that would probably be crank numbers and not tire numbers, because the reality is a no tune required intake like this will typically yield high single-digit gains to the tire at best without the use of a tune, which again, this intake does not require. You can run one with it if you'd like, but it's certainly not a necessity. Now, that's not to say there aren't other benefits here with the K&N intake installed, including the small bump in power, along with a little bit more throttle response and the much cooler look. But I don't want you guys thinking an aftermarket intake like this is going to set the world on fire in terms of gains to the tire. But aside from the benefits and the look, the Blackhawk here will definitely deliver some really nice components, including that black aluminum intake tube we've already talked about, in addition to the filter and airbox. Now, as we mentioned earlier, guys, this intake is going to be a little bit unique because unlike the traditional oiled cotton gauze filter that K&N typically includes with their systems, the Blackhawk here is going to go a different route. Instead, they're going to utilize a dry synthetic material, so still going to be washable, still going to be reusable, but it won't need that extra step of re-oiling before the install, which some owners might see as a benefit. Now, in regards to actually cleaning the filter itself, K&N states this thing can go up to 100,000 miles before it needs a deep cleaning, but depending on your area, you might want to consider cleaning it a little bit more often. Last but not least, guys, K&N does kick in all of your hardware, your couplers, your clamps, things like that needed for the installation, in addition to your molded heat shield here, which, as you can see, does tap into your factory cold air system, or ducting, I should say, from the front of the car to help get all that fresh, cool, dense air onto that synthetic filter as possible. And to help seal out any possible hot engine bay air, K&N did include this kind of weather stripping to be topped off on that airbox to seal to the underside of the hood, again, in an attempt to block out all that hot engine bay air because this is not a sealed enclosure. But as promised, let's get into the installation with the Blackhawk on our 2018 GT. So without further ado, here is that detailed walkthrough along with a quick tool breakdown.
Tools required for this job: diagonal cutters, needle nose pliers, push pin removal tool, 3.5mm Allen key, 4mm Allen key, 16mm wrench, 3/8 inch drive, 1/4 inch drive, extension, T20 Torx bit, 7mm socket, 8mm socket, 10mm socket, and a 15mm socket, optional as an impact. Today I'm going to show you how to install this K&N Blackhawk cold air intake. All right, we're going to start off by popping the hood. All right, we're going to first start off by removing our battery cover and disconnecting our negative side of our battery. All right, now to remove our factory engine cover, we do have to remove our factory strut tower brace. It's a 15mm deep socket. All right, now with the strut tower brace removed, we can remove our two 10mm nuts. There should be two covers on here. Ours are missing. So with this, there's gonna be two little pressure fittings in the front, two in the back. And just set this off to the side. All right, now underneath the hood, we're gonna be removing some of the factory connections like the mass airflow sensor here. It's just a little red tab underneath that plug. Pull it back, pull it out, set that to the side. Now this is your sound tube that emits that exhaust note inside the cabin. We are going to use a pair of needle nose pliers and bring this clamp back until it locks into place. Like that. Now we can pull that off, maybe use a pair of pliers or a flathead screwdriver. All right, so what we're gonna do with this vacuum line is twist it towards us so we can expose that whole tab back there. And with fingernails on both sides, lift up on it, just put that back to its place so we don't drop that. We're gonna move on to this. This is your PCV over here. It's gonna be underneath that one right there. Just opens up. Now with that out of the way, and that, we can start working on our clamps and the bolts that secure the airbox itself. All right, now we're gonna disconnect our sound tube right here. Just pull that right off. And then with a 10mm socket, we're gonna be removing the single bolt holding our airbox in. All right, now I'm using a 7mm socket for my hose clamp on the airbox. And now with this, we're just gonna move it to the side. It clicks like that. You can pull it off. All right, now our airbox is ready to come out as one. So what I'm gonna do is lift up on this, pull away from the body there, and remove it. All right, so now I have all the parts for our new cold air intake laid out on the table. And this little weather stripping here came in one long strip. I cut this to 34 inches and this to 9 inches as it says in the instructions. Now I'll show you how it goes on. We're gonna start at the bottom edge over here and just slip it on past those grooves. And now for the turns, you can cut it. We are going to make the turn because it is pretty flexible. I'm just gonna go back around, make sure it is seated evenly all along. We're gonna move on to our 9-inch section. Now, we're gonna take the part that mounts your air filter inside this box. There are threaded inserts. We're gonna use the supplied hardware. Get them started here. These are 4mm Allen heads. All right, now we're gonna install our fresh air duct, and you'll see that there is a little cutout here. We're just gonna need to position that into the grooves here. Now this is flexible, so you can work it into place. Now we're gonna install this in the car. All right, now we're gonna be putting our new heat shield and air duct in. We're gonna make sure our mass airflow sensor is out of the way. And we are going to sneak our air duct into place. And that goes forward into the grill here and sits over top. And we're also gonna make sure our little nutsert here is in place. And we are going to be reusing our factory hardware, which was that 10mm bolt. Slip that in. And start that by hand. And tighten that up. All right, I'm just going to check again, make sure my fresh air duct is in its spot. It is. All right, now we're going to get our air filter in there. But first we have to switch over our mass airflow sensor from our old stock intake air box to our new elbow. All right, now using a T20 Torx bit, we're gonna be removing our factory mass airflow sensor. We're gonna set this off to the side. Make sure your gasket stays in place like that. Set our factory air box out of the way as well. All right, now with the new intake tube in front of us, we are going to set our mass airflow sensor in place, gasket into place as well. Now there is new hardware. It's this Allen key head screw. All right, now that's ready to install in the car. All right, now we're gonna be installing our hose coupler to our air box. This is on by an 8mm hose clamp. I'm just gonna set it up all the way against that box. And then always put your hose clamps in a nice, easily accessible area. Now we're gonna bring this tube. Now we're not gonna tighten this one down a whole heck of a lot, just to have a little play when we put that other elbow on. All right, now I'm gonna slip one of my hose clamps onto my intake tube here. And my intake tube onto my throttle body right here. Make sure it's on all the way around. And slip that into place. Put our tube into its place. I think I need to loosen up my hose clamp here just a little bit. Now I can slide that into place. Again, put that clamp somewhere that you can access it nice and easily. Tighten that down. And now we can get our pipe exactly where we want it. Is there. Put our clamp around it. All right, now I have a 90-degree elbow here for part of our vacuum system. We're gonna thread this on by hand first. And then use a 16mm wrench to just snug that up. All right, and then you wanna get this into a position where it will accept that vacuum line. It's gonna be right around there. We'll wait to connect all those until we get there. All right, now we're gonna plug in our mass airflow sensor extension wire, and we are going to plug in just like that, lock it down underneath this elbow here, and then connect it to our stock mass airflow sensor. Clip it in, lock it in place. Now we can start reconnecting some of our tubes. We're gonna be removing this sound tube in a minute though. PCV goes on like that. You hear it click in, and then this vacuum line, again, clicks in just like that. Now we're gonna get this sound tube out of the way and get our filter in place. All right, now we're gonna be using a push pin removal tool to lift up on this Christmas tree clip, holding our sound tube down. Then we're gonna use our 8mm socket to undo this hose clamp. And pull the sound tube out, just like that. All right, now we're gonna take our supplied plug it into our sound tube. And then we are going to over tighten this hose clamp right here until it clamps down on that plug. Make sure it goes in evenly. Let me move mine around a little bit there. All right, so that's pinched down on that, sealing it off from the firewall. I'm gonna push that pin back in. All right, now we're gonna slip our filter in place. I have that hose clamp on there. Just make sure it goes on evenly, top and bottom. Again, position that hose clamp in a spot you can easily access it. All right, now we're gonna replace our engine cover. A very easy way to tell this is in place is just to get those little press fittings started. And make sure your oil fill net goes through. It can be a pain sometimes, so I like to put it on an extension socket. All right, with those tight, we're gonna be putting our strut tower brace back on. Putting this into place, I'm gonna start over there, because this side you have to move this positive wire loom out of the way. Start your nuts. I'm gonna tighten these pretty evenly across. Don't want this side poking up more than the other. All right, now we're ready to reconnect our battery. This is a 10mm. Put our cover back on. All right, that's gonna wrap up my install of the K&N Blackhawk cold air intake. And for all things Mustang, keep it here at AmericanMuscle.com.